Welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever stopped to think, really think, about how many huge discoveries weren't planned at all, but just, happened by chance?
It's fascinating, isn't it? Pure luck sometimes. Or maybe noticing something others missed.
Exactly. Today, we're doing a deep dive into 10 cool organic discoveries. It's a chapter that really shows how much science, especially organic chemistry, owes to, well, serendipity, good observation, and, a bit of luck.
Right. And what's amazing is how these breakthroughs, often just stumbled upon, completely changed how we see the world and how we live. Our mission today is to kind of unpack the stories behind them, see how big a role chance really played.
And we're using Chapter 22 of Organic Chemistry I for Dummies, second ad, as our guide here. It does a great job making this stuff, which can be pretty dense, feel really accessible.
It really does. It also brings up that key idea, Pasteur's famous line, luck favors the prepared mind. It's not just about being lucky, it's about being ready to see the luck when it happens.
Absolutely. Being open to the unexpected. Okay, let's jump in. Our first story is, well, it's explosive, literally, dynamite, and Alfred Nobel.
Nobel. His family saw potential in nitroglycerin early on. They knew it packed a much bigger punch than gunpowder.
But it was incredibly dangerous stuff, right?
Oh, extremely. Nitroglycerin is this oily, syrupy liquid, and it's notoriously unstable. The slightest jolt could set it off. And tragically, Alfred's own brother, Emil, and some colleagues died in a huge explosion.
Dirt awful. That must have been devastating.
Absolutely. But instead of giving up, Alfred became obsessed with making it safer. He experimented, observed.
And he figured it out.
He did. His solution was actually quite elegant. He mixed the liquid nitroglycerin with silica powder, basically diatomaceous earth, like a fine powder.
Right.
And that turned it into this stable, putty-like mash. He called it dynamite. Suddenly, this incredibly dangerous liquid was a manageable solid.
Why? That's simple.
Relatively simple concept, but revolutionary impact. And he didn't stop there. He also developed blaster caps detonators to control the explosion safely.
Right, so you could actually use it reliably.
Exactly. And that combination stable dynamite plus safe detonation made him incredibly wealthy, one of the richest men of his time. It changed mining, construction, everything.
And the big irony, of course,
Is the Nobel Prizes, yeah. He used that vast fortune from explosives to establish the awards, including the Nobel Peace Prize.
quite a legacy shift. From dynamite to peace.
A really remarkable story. Okay, so from that kind of modern industrial revolution, let's rewind way back, thousands of years, to fermentation.
Okay, yeah. The source says nobody really knows who discovered it. Probably just noticed some rotting fruit doing something interesting.
That's the best guess. Imagine finding a container of old fruit, maybe grapes, and it's bubbly, smells different.
And someone was brave enough to try it.
Apparently so. The basic chemistry is that enzymes in yeast, which are naturally everywhere, break down sugars in the fruit and produce alcohol. It's a natural process.
No chemistry labs need it.
Nope, just nature doing its thing. And someone tasted this. Well, this fermented juice. And found it had a, quote, potent and pleasurable effect.
Understatement of the millennium, maybe?
Probably. And that discovery, that accident, led directly to winemaking. Then later, people figured out how to do something similar with grains and honey that gave us beer.
And beer was a big deal, wasn't it?
Huge. The Sumerians were brewing beer like 6,000 years ago. And get this, some historians argue that the desire for a steady supply of grain for beer was actually a major reason humans settled down.
Wait, seriously? Farming started because people wanted beer.
It's a strong theory. Gave up the nomadic life to cultivate crops, partly, maybe largely, for brewing. Beer might literally be a cornerstone of civilization.
That is wild. Okay, mind blown. Let's move forward again. A really key moment in chemistry history. The synthesis of urea. Friedrich Wöhler.
Yes, Wöhler. This was massive.
Yeah.
He synthesized urea, which everyone knew was an organic compound, something from living things from a purely inorganic substance.
Why was that such a big deal?
Because the dominant idea back then was vitalism. People thought organic molecules could only be made by living organisms, that they contained some special vital life force.
Like a magical ingredient.
Pretty much a non-physical essence. Wöhler's experiment completely shattered that idea. It showed organic compounds were just chemicals, obeying the same rules as inorganic ones. You could make them in a flask.
And he didn't even mean to do it, right? It was an accident.
Classic serendipity. He was trying to make something else entirely, ammonium cyanate, But the crystals he got didn't look right. On checking, they looked exactly like urea, this animal substance usually found in urine.
So he just stumbled upon it.
He stumbled upon it, but then he did the rigorous science. He didn't just say, looks like urea. He carefully compared the properties of his synthesized stuff to pure urea extracted from urine.
Yeah.
Identical. Absolutely identical. That careful comparison proved it. It was a huge blow to vitalism and really opened the door for modern organic chemistry.
Amazing. Okay, next up, another giant, Louis Pasteur. And this time, it's about the handedness of tartaric acid from wine again.
Naturally, Pasteur was studying tartaric acid, a compound found in wine sediment. And he noticed something subtle. Under the microscope, the crystals weren't all the same.
Different shapes.
2 different shapes, specifically. And they were mirror images of each other, like your left and right hands.
Okay, interesting.
Pasteur thought so too. So with incredible patience, he actually sat there with tweezers and physically separated the left-handed crystals from the right-handed ones.
No way. One by one.
One by one. Painstaking work. Then he dissolved each type of crystal separately and shone plain polarized light through the solutions.
Polarized light, like in sunglasses.
Sort of. It's light that vibrates in only one direction, and he found one solution rotated the light clockwise and the other rotated it counterclockwise by the exact same amount.
Whoa. Same chemical, different effect on light. Ow.
That was the key question. Pasteur figured it out. He deduced it had to be due to the 3-dimensional shape, the handedness of the molecules themselves. This discovery founded the field of stereochemistry, how atoms are arranged in space.
Just from looking closely at wine crystals.
Yeah.
Incredible. Okay, let's move to a powerful reaction. The Diels-Alder reaction. Otto Diels and Kurt Alder.
Ah, yes, a truly elegant and useful reaction. It's what chemists call a denene synthesis. Basically, you take 2 specific types of molecules, a denene and a dienophile, and they snap together.
Snap together how?
In one step, they form 2 new carbon bonds simultaneously, which is really efficient. It lets you build complex ring structures, especially 6-membered rings and these sort of strange-looking bicyclic molecules really easily.
Like the pesticide aldrin the source mentions.
Exactly like aldrin, and countless pharmaceuticals and materials. It's a workhorse reaction in synthesis.
And there's a funny story about them trying to keep it for themselves.
Yes. In their seminal paper, they literally wrote something like, "We're reserving this reaction for ourselves to solve these kinds of problems," basically telling other chemists to back off from using it for natural product synthesis.
Did that work? Usually that just makes people rush to try it.
That's what's so amazing. It actually did work. For quite a while, until after World War II, most chemists respected that warning. It's really unusual in science. Usually, as you say, it sparks intense competition, like with Gomberg's radical discovery.
Wow. Okay. Power move by Diels and Alder. All right, let's jump to something more recent. 1985. Buckyballs.
Buckminster fullerenes, yes. Discovered by Smalley, Kroto, and Curl. They're a relatively new form of pure carbon, an allotrope.
Allotrope, like the diamond and graphite.
Exactly. Diamond and graphite are just carbon atoms arranged differently. Buckyballs are a third way, where 60 carbon atoms form a perfect sphere, like a tiny soccer ball.
A molecular soccer ball. Cool. How'd they find that? Were they looking for it?
Not at all. Another accident. They were trying to simulate the conditions in interstellar space, so they were blasting graphite powder with a high-power laser. And then they analyzed the soot and vapor produced using a mass spectrometer, which measures the mass of molecules. They saw this huge, unexpected peak corresponding to exactly 60 carbon atoms. C60.
C60. And they figured it was a ball.
Their chemical intuition kicked in. They realized a sphere would be incredibly stable and symmetric, explaining the strong signal. They named it Buckminster fullerene after Buckminster Fuller and his geodesic domes, which have that same pattern of hexagons and pentagons.
So buckyballs, are they used for anything major yet?
Not quite yet in a big mainstream way, but there's tons of research. People are looking at them for superconductors, maybe using them as gasoline markers to track spills, or even as tiny cages for drug delivery within the body.
Lots of potential that's still unfolding. Okay, let's shift to something really basic, something we use every day. Soap.
The legend of soap. The story goes that Roman women washing clothes down by the Tiber River noticed some spots were just better for cleaning.
Like magic cleaning spots.
Kind of. And the explanation, the legend says, was a sacrificial altar on nearby Sopo Hill. Animal sacrifices meant animal fat.
Okay.
And the fires used for the sacrifices produced wood ash, which contains lye potassium hydroxide, a strong base. When it rained, the fat and the ash would mix.
And wash down into the river.
Exactly. Fat plus lye, when heated or mixed well, makes soap. It's a basic chemical reaction called saponification. So these women accidentally discovered the cleaning power of this natural soap runoff.
So cool. Chemistry happening right there in the river. Okay, next. A discovery that probably broke every lab safety rule. Aspartame.
Oh, yeah. James Schlatter, 1965. He was working on synthesizing compounds, looking for a potential anti-ulcer drug, and he accidentally got some powder on his finger. Later, when he licked his finger to pick up a piece of paper, something tasted incredibly sweet.
He licked his fingers?
Yeah.
In a chemistry lab?
Yeah, he did. Definitely not standard procedure now. But his curiosity took over. He tasted the compounds he'd been working with. Carefully, I hope.
And found the sweet one.
Found the sweet one, aspartame. And the source says he even took another taste, just to be sure. Unbelievable.
Wow. But that led to NutraSweet and Equal.
Yep. One of the most widely used artificial sweeteners in the world, found in thousands of products, especially diet drinks, all from breaking a fundamental lab safety rule.
Crazy. Okay, from sweet tastes to saving lives. Probably the most famous serendipitous discovery ever. Alexander Fleming and penicillin.
The classic story. Fleming was studying Staphylococcus bacteria, notorious for causing infections.
And his experiment got messed up.
Exactly. Some of his petri dishes, where he was growing the bacteria, got contaminated with a mold, a penicillium fungus. He was annoyed, apparently, and set them aside to be sterilized.
But he didn't sterilize them properly.
That's the key part. He didn't submerge them fully in the cleaning solution. When he came back later, maybe after a holiday, he noticed something odd about those contaminated plates.
What did he see?
Around the spots where the mold was growing, there was a clear ring where the bacteria weren't growing. They'd been killed off.
Ah, the mold was doing something.
Precisely. Fleming realized something that the fungus is producing must be killing the bacteria. That something was penicillin, the world's first true antibiotic.
And the rest is history. Countless lives saved.
Monumental. All because he noticed something interesting in a failed experiment. It's the perfect example of the prepared mind seeing what others might have just thrown away.
Truly is. Okay, last one, number 10. A kitchen staple for many, Teflon.
Right? That super slippery coating on nonstick frying pans, discovered back in 1938 by chemists at DuPont, Reebok, and Plunkett.
Keeps our eggs from sticking. How did they find that?
Another complete accident, and a bit of a mystery at first. They were working with refrigerant gases, specifically one called tetrafluoroethylene, stored in pressurized metal canisters.
Okay, standard stuff.
Right. But one day, they went to use a canister that, according to their records and its weight, should have been full of gas. They opened the valve. Nothing came out.
Empty. A leak.
That's what they thought first. A leak. But then they checked the weight again. The empty canister weighed the same as a full one.
Whoa. That doesn't make sense. Gas is gone, but the weight is the same.
Exactly. Total puzzle. So what do curious chemists do? They sawed the canister open.
And inside?
Inside, coating the walls, was this weird, waxy, slippery white powder. The gas, the tetrafluoroethylene, had spontaneously polymerized, linked itself together into long chains inside the canister, forming this new solid substance.
Aslan. Just like that.
Just like that. Polytetrafluoroethylene, or PTFE, a material born from a faulty gas cylinder. It just shows, again, you have to investigate when things don't behave the way you expect.
Incredible. So, wrapping this all up, 10 discoveries, 10 stories of accident, observation, luck. What's the big takeaway here?
I think it really hammers home that science isn't always this neat, linear process we imagine. Organic chemistry, like all science, is full of these surprising turns.
Yeah, it's messy sometimes.
It can be. And these stories show the power of, well, noticing things, questioning why something weird happened instead of just ignoring it, letting curiosity run wild even when an experiment fails.
That prepared mind thing again, being ready to see the opportunity in the unexpected.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Look around you at everyday things.
Yeah.
How many other objects, materials, medicines, foods might have similarly strange or accidental origin stories that we just don't know about?
That's a great thought. What other hidden histories are sitting on our shelves or in our pockets? Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the often accidental genius behind organic chemistry. We really hope you found these stories as fascinating as we did. Maybe you had a few aha moments.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and definitely stay curious.